It was September of 1991 that I first came here to Baku. The country's then communist rulers prepared for an election and then suddenly publicly declared independence from the Soviet Union. Now, Azerbaijanis wanted desperately to go the same way that Eastern Europe had gone, see the end of Moscow's heavy hand here. But they were far from agreed on just how they would go about that. At the time, the fledgling opposition, free to hold demonstrations for the first time in decades, feared the communists would simply change the name of the party and continue running the country. Many wanted a national election canceled so other political parties could have time to get organized. And fears were fresh that a crackdown ordered by the Soviet Union could derail any hopes they might have of democracy. All right, in the long 20 years since then, there have been a lot of changes, and one photographer has been there to capture all of them. My friend, photojournalist, and philanthropist, I've got to say, Reza. He's been to more than 100 countries, taking pictures, photographs for National Geographic, Time, Newsweek, Le Monde, and so many other publications. He's captured conflicts, revolutions, and he's also captured a lot of the beauty of humanity with his camera. Now, here he is with me now. Pull me out to the two-shot as we've got the Maiden Tower behind us. I want to share with all of you some of the covers that he's had for National Geographic, covers that you're going to recognize from newsstands that you've seen all around the world. All right, Reza's with me now. We have some amazing images. Reza, let's begin going through some of them. You first were here, well, back in the 1980s, but we're going to begin with a photograph from 1990. When was that?
Well, when the Russian armies came in and they started moving over the people with the tanks and killing hundreds of the people, I sneaked in, hiding in a train coming from Moscow and getting the pictures that you can see the tanks.
Well, you were hiding in the back of a car. It's pretty evident in this picture.
And then I came out and I had all these pictures of the tanks standing just over here.
Yeah, the next picture shows, you got a little braver then. What, I suppose the tank crew was inside or the armored personnel crew was inside?
Well, there was a lot of Russian army all around, and it was almost impossible to show a camera, but I was able to come in and get help of the friends here and get those pictures to show to the world how brutal was the crackdown of the Russian army here.
Well, you see the funerals in some of the next images.
And then there was a funerals just over here.
Because they drove tanks over the people.
They came with the tanks. They drove over the people at the night times that they were sitting there and having the demonstration peacefully. This was one of the first cities that started against the Russian invasion or Russian Empire that was called Soviet Union at the time.
Yeah. You have a way with your photographs of getting up close and personal. I mean, some of these photographs really show people's faces and just the shock. I mean, they don't know what to do at these funerals.
Well, this pictures, that the next one, you see the face of the pictures on the funeral, and they have lost their families, they have lost many of the friends, and there was thousands of the people gathered here on the funeral. And this was the only picture that I was able to take it out and distribute all over the world to show what's happening.
It was called Black January. It wasn't documented because the entire country of Azerbaijan was sealed off by Soviet troops, preventing anybody else out. But really the agony for this country didn't end there. Take us to 1992.
Well, then came this war in the Karabakh, when the Armenian forces start coming and fighting, getting help from the Russian army, getting help from other countries, and moving in. They have, in one point, surrounded a village was called Khojali, and they massacred almost everybody there. And I was the only one finally arriving here and witnessing of all those people that were massacred, and few survivors gathering there outside in the city of Agdam, outside the Khojali, and looking for their beloved people.
It was February 1992, the seventh image we're showing here. It's the father, tears in his eyes.
The father that looking for his son, and the only thing that he has to show and going around, this was really for me as a photographer, was so heartbreaking. He was holding in his hand.
That next image, tiny, that's all he had of his son.
This was the only thing was remaining, holding the pictures of his son and going around and crying and showing to the people with no word, and obviously his son is gone. He was killed in this Khojali massacres by Armenian forces.
Well, you had a lot of people. The next picture shows an old woman who's obviously in distress. What's her story?
The old woman was
And
there.
we're talking about Nagorno-Karabakh. We're
Exactly.
talking about the conflict there.
The Nagorno-Karabakh was first invaded by the, and then came like more than 20% of the Azerbaijani land taken over by the Russian and Armenian troops. The woman came for 3 days looking for her husband and her son. And finally, when the Red Cross, when they were bringing the bodies, she found them and she came to me and crying and shouting, saying that I find them, but their eyes were taken out, they were tortured. This was the history of this massacre of the Khojaly, untold story actually.
And the next image shows not even children were spared.
Even the children, they were killed in all this Khojaly massacres. And this is one of the main things that remain with me as a photojournalist, trying to explain to the world that there are untold massacres, that sometimes we have to come up and we have to make it clear about what's happening.
And you also have to be there for the victims, for the survivors that are here. The next image shows a couple of boys, and it would appear to be they're having a good time.
Well, the kids are the kids everywhere, even the refugees. You know, there was almost 1 million Azerbaijani became displaced or refugees over this war. When the
half a million came to Baku alone.
500,000 here and then 500,000 all around Azerbaijan, and there were nothings here. They were living.
Well, they had to live off the land. They had to live off the Caspian Sea, even the most polluted waters. The next image shows them fishing for something to eat.
Exactly, for eating for the refugees, or they were taking over of every little places that was left here. Even in the trains that were older trains, they were living inside the old trains.
Okay, let's quickly go through some of these other images. A couple of images of a school. First, we see the school that you found.
Yes, I photographed for National Geographic story. There was this Khan Mehmed, a teacher, the refugee, that he put up these chairs. And
but you came back the next year, and I want to show there's a white building in this image, and that's the school that Reza built.
Yes, yeah, obviously, what you can do when you see all these people this way. I returned back with the help of my sister, Paricha, and we built this school for those children. That there were many of them now, they are universities. I have seen many of them in universities. I have them, even one of them is an anchor in a TV here. One of the girl that was in this school here.
What a story that is. But we move on. We're looking, now we go to the 1990s, and Baku has changed. There's the Ministry of Labor in this image, and then you move on, and you look at the beautiful nature that's here too. What is it, the Larak Mountains?
First of all, as you said, the change that's happened here in 20 years, it's just tremendous. You cannot even recognize what's happening in this country. Rebuildings and really coming up with the real construction. But the beauty of the landscapes, you see this in pictures of the landscapes. And when I saw this, these flowers, then I realized where they got this carpets, when they got all these things.
Before we have to go, because I'm running out of time, we see the food image. It's just like a carpet. You see song and dance, new and old. You see the music concerts, and you see the beauty of the people.
This is the culture of this country, actually. The foods that you see there, it was done by Irada, artists that using the food and making like a carpet, or you see the dance, ballet, opera, all of them. It's a real rich culture here, and that's what I'm trying to show now for my next works here.
You got a book coming out next year on Azerbaijan. Reza, my friend, it's always great to see you.